The Queen's Astoria Post last week sat down with Kelly Klingman, who was looking to score a major political upset in November by ousting Progressive Council Member Tiffany Cabán from her District 22 seat. Klingman, a single mother of two who works in real estate, outlines her policy positions on crime, housing, sanitation, the cost of living crisis, the migrant crisis, and a controversial climate change bill called Local Law 97 that will inflict fines and high costs on thousands of co-op and condo owners. I started off the interview by asking Klingman about her background and why she has decided to run for office.
My background, I'm a single mom here in Astoria. I have twins, they're 10. I moved to Astoria about 12 years ago. I grew up in Buffalo, but I moved to New York City to work in real estate. I started as a leasing agent back in 2021. And the reason why I'm running is because, well, I'm not a politician. A lot of people in the community have been voicing their concerns about things that have been happening, especially since COVID. There's been a lot of new movement in the political realm, especially in the district. And I was asked if I would ever consider running for office, which was pretty scary. And I made the last minute decision to put my hat in the ring in March. And particularly because, I just can't stand on the sidelines anymore and just, watch soapbox speeches and all of that. And nothing's really happening. And there's a lot of good ideas floating around, but the execution of them, it's not translating to the ground. And I feel like, given that I've been in business for over 20 years, working in real estate, and being a mom and being an advocate and understanding the community, that I could really, bring a lot of insight to the table, which is why I'm running.
So what are some of the main concerns that you would like to flag about the neighbourhood, and what are some of the main concerns that residents have been raising to you as you've been going on the campaign trail?
So the biggest concern, and I know it's crazy, but the streets are really filthy. It's you walk down 31st Street, you walk down Broadway, 34th Avenue, 36th Avenue, Steinway. It's just, I've lived here a long time, and people have lived here even longer than I have, and it is visibly noticeable that there's much more graffiti, there's much more boarded up businesses, a lot of dirt on the streets. We have a lot of homeless now that are living on the streets, mentally ill, and crime. And crime is a number one issue because we now have issues with not just Amazon packages or anything like that, but we've got, catalytic converters being stolen from cars. My ex-husband's car was broken into. They stole all my daughter's baseball stuff right over here around the corner. We've had a couple shootings in the neighborhood, which is very unusual for this district. Like, even when, there was high crime in the 90s, this was kind of a safe enclave. So it's surprising even to long-term residents that have been here that the crime is significantly noticeable and a huge uptick.
And why do you think the streets are dirty, and why do you think there's an uptick in crime?
I think it's resources. I think there needs to be more resources for sanitation. I know that the Department of Sanitation has changed, and they do take on more responsibilities now. They are responsible for some of the homeless cleanups. They're also responsible now for dealing with not just cleaning the streets, but they also are dealing with some of the illegal, vendors, street vendors. That's part of the Department of Transportation. It's Department of Sanitation. It's not with the NYPD. So I feel like it's also like a shortage of workers, and then it's just allocating the resources to the district.
Crime, it's a hot button issue. It affects everyone. I see that you've gone to some of the local police meetings. I have the stats in front of me here for 2003. So far this year, major crime is up nearly 5%. 2 years, it's up 31.6% in the neighbourhood.
Yeah.
And overall, across the city, crime is spiralling, is on the uptick. So, what's causing it? And if you get into office, how are you going to try and curb that?
A lot of laws have changed. There's been bail reform laws that have changed, but I think the number one problem in the district right now is that we have a city councilwoman who is not advocating with the police to come up with solutions to the crime problem. I know other districts, they're working with Melinda Katz, the current DA. I would definitely work with Melinda Katz, the DA. She's actually brought some interesting programs that she's been working on to kind of deal with a lot of the burglary and a lot of the high theft. I think, there's like something like 365 perpetrators that were doing about 20,000 crimes when it came to the burglary. So it's a lot of repeat offenders. And working with the district attorney, they have come up with some programs that have helped not just remove them from the streets, but also to deter them from continuing to do it. So it's not just about arresting and bail. It's also about what can we do to deter the crime as well. And so, I would work with the district attorney, but then I would also believe there's a lot of bicycle and public safety when it comes to pedestrians as well. We've had a lot of issues with that, and I know that there's a lot of advocates for more bike lanes and protected bike lanes. We need more police officers too. I think having more police officers, maybe even having resources where we can have police that are on bicycles, that are also patrolling that way. We need those resources on the streets, and we're having trouble. We don't have crossing guards in certain areas. We have a crossing guard shortage, and so I would work with the NYPD to get the resources that we need. And then on the other hand, we have to build morale. And so having all this negative rhetoric surrounding the NYPD is not helpful either. So I think if we can tone down the rhetoric, we can all come together and work together. There are solutions that the community can work towards that will help prevent crime like it did before in the district.
Yeah, your opponent in the race, Tiffany Cabán, of course she's out there, she's a progressive. She called for the defunding the police. She also called for the NYPD's gang database to be scrapped and hasn't really been engaged with crime in the neighbourhood. Do you think that has contributed to an uptick in crime in the neighbourhood?
I believe that not just Tiffany Cabán, but the whole coalition behind that has contributed to an uptick in crime in the neighbourhood. It's the inability to come together at a table and work together that's contributing to the crime in the neighbourhood. It's the negative rhetoric that doesn't help either. I'm in a position now, and one of the reasons why I stepped into the ring is because I sit back and it's both sides. There's rhetoric on both sides, and it's all hateful and damaging, and at the end of the day, the city has a lot of problems. The crises just keep increasing, and it's pointing fingers. Oh, it's the mayor's fault, or it's the federal government's fault, or it's the right-wing Republicans, or it's the left-wing. We all need to come together and solve some of these problems and tone down the rhetoric, and that's my main goal, to go into City Hall and work across the aisle and come to solutions to fix the problems that we have. I go to these police meetings, and I know you go as well, and it's very cumbersome every time you hear, well, we can't do that. Well, we can't do this. Well, it's this department's problem now, and we're not allowed to do this. It's almost like you sit there, and I think in my head, because I'm a business person and this is what I do in my career, I say, well, what can we do? What can you do? And I like Melinda Katz because she is that type of DA too that sits there and is like, okay, I was handed these bail reform laws, I was handed all this stuff when I got into office, then COVID happened, things shut down, courts are stalled, courts aren't moving. There's a lot of I can't, right? But what can I do? And working with, I know that she works with community councils in certain districts like Flushing, that they had issues with illegal street vendors and other, problems on the streets, and the councilwoman, the city council, and Melinda Katz and the community affairs all got together to work, what can we do? And that's the kind of government we need, and that's the kind of local government we need to bring the community together and take care of these issues.
Yeah, she came up. She replicated the initiative that they came up with in Flushing, that the business owners would work with the police to identify recurring alleged thieves. You're running as a Republican. Is it tough to win a council seat in Astoria as a Republican?
We'll see. I might be the first. I might be the first. It's interesting. I've been a Republican since my first vote in 2001 when I turned 18. So. Okay. But yes, I've been a Republican my whole life. Republicans, we have many different facets of the party, just like the Democrats do. So I consider myself more, to the middle.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the strong points of the Democrats and in Western Queens is they have a good ground game with young people to get them out to vote. Is that something that is difficult to kind of?
You know, this election, it's not. But I think for me, it's different because I've been in the community for such a long time. I'm very active in the community. I have kids in the community. A lot of people know me. Yeah. I think a lot of people, if they knew me, they wouldn't even think that I was Republican, you know, but a lot of people. And so I've really built a coalition of independents, Democrats, even some left-leaning Democrats. I've built a good coalition of support. We have a good amount of volunteers, a lot of people wanting to help with the campaign. We have a ground game coming, which is very exciting, and it's very encouraging. So I think a lot of people are tired, and they're tired of the media and, you know, the Trump side, the progressive side. It's a lot. Because when you have all these issues and you're struggling to pay for groceries, I mean, my groceries went from $100 a week to $300 a week. You know, it's an unimaginable. I did school supplies this year for my kids, $300. You know, I can't. The subway keeps going up. The subway is unsafe. You get in an Uber. As soon as you sit down in the car, it's $10 with taxes and fees before you even move. And it's the cost of living is crippling everybody. I feel it. There's elderly people that own this house here. I don't know if you noticed when you walked up the stairs, there's, you know, damage to the skylight. There's, you know, these houses are old. They're on fixed income. Their taxes are going up. The water sewer is going up. The cost of electricity is going up. Like, every single facet of society is really struggling right now. And that's why we need to just come together and stop the grandstanding and work to solve problems.
Have you enjoyed the campaigning? It's your first time campaigning and not really a politician. It's a new experience. How have you found it?
So it's bittersweet because I'm enjoying meeting people in the community and getting to know the community, but a lot of the community is struggling. And a lot of the community is they're desperate for help. They're desperate for a voice, and they're desperate for somebody who's got an office that's open, who's going to address their complaints, who's not in different districts, you know, trying to run for a higher office there. And so it's kind of eye-opening. Like, I have people say she comes, she gives a speech, she shakes some hands, she takes some pictures, she promises things, and then nothing results. You know, so and people need, like, I know that in the Astoria houses, they really need a community center for their teens. They have a community center through HANC. I've walked through it. It's wonderful. It's great, but it's more for the younger kids, you know. But they need something like a little bit larger for the teenagers, and they have work programs that come in through Urban Upbound, but they really need something for like job training, more education for the teenagers, things for them to do after school. You know, they have the Boys and Girls Club, but I believe that's going to be closing for a couple of years because they're going to be doing major renovations there. So they've been trying to advocate for that for quite some time. There's communities that have been needing a senior center. There's other communities that they feel like that they're trying to get things done. The teachers, they complain to me all the time because the teachers, they say they still pay their own school supplies. You know, they still struggle without any. Their classroom sizes are getting bigger. They don't have the resources for the number of neurodivergent children that are coming into the schools now. Plus, you know, mental health issues that they're having since COVID with some of the schools. You know, I know my kids' class, you know, a couple kids were held back because they couldn't keep up with the at-home learning during COVID. So there's a lot of problems that since COVID, especially in the school systems and with our children, that haven't really been addressed, and the resources aren't really there for the teachers either. So it's been very difficult. And now we're adding in, you know, migrants coming into the classrooms, and are there adequate resources for them as well to help the teachers? You know, it's complicated for them too. So
you're saying that you're going to be more engaged council member if the district chooses you compared to your opponent. Yes. And secondly, the cost of living crisis is, as you just mentioned, it's affecting everyone. You have two kids, single mother. It must be even tougher. Is there anything you can do as a council member to kind of curb the cost of living and inflation? Because a lot of it does come from the federal level. But is there anything any ideas that you have to do?
You know, I think there are a lot of things we can do, especially especially with our seniors, there are certain like SNAP type programs, tax incentives, caps on, on electricity and water and sewer incentives. There's things that we can do from a tax perspective that would, with programs that would help. I know that there's a lot of people that are single moms like me, that it's impossible to find childcare to go back to work. And that's something that we need to address, I think, as a city, to help these women be able to go back to work. Because I know for me, when I put my kids in daycare, I would say it was probably because they were twins, so it was the same age. So it was almost like $40,000 a year you spend on childcare. Wow. Which is insane. Yeah. I was basically working to pay for childcare, but in my career, I felt if I took a couple years off my career and stayed home, I would lose my footing in the career path. Yeah. So that's always a choice as a woman too, which is very difficult. You touched on something there, the migrant crisis as well, and it ties into the cost of living and the city spending. The mayor said it's going to cost $12 billion. The city is going to have to pay in the next 2 years to pay for the migrant crisis. It's a big issue at the moment. That it's everyone has their opinion on it. What's your own opinion on it, and what are the solutions that you might come up with? So with the migrant crisis, it's a tragedy all around. I don't know if you've seen the church on 12th Street. If you've been over there, we have. I think they're mostly African from Senegal. They're very nice people. They've come. They are put in the worst situation ever because they're here. They thought they can come here. They thought they would get jobs. I believe they take them and they shower them in the Astoria pool, because there's no showers in the church. Yeah. And from what I understand, the church is no longer going to continue their contract with the city, and then the migrants are going to be. And it's they're going around now collecting bottles in order to make some money to, because they can't get jobs. So I think the number one priority is with the money, it's how much are we spending? Especially, are we negotiating any of these deals? Because I know for a fact that some of the hotel deals that have been done at full price. I think that financially, we need to look at what everything's been done, what's being negotiated. I know that the city council, like Gail Brewer, has said some of these contracts haven't been bidded out. They've just been sent through. So that number, that $1 billion number that he keeps talking about, I think that the council should really be looking at, and I'd be happy to get my hands on where all the spending is going and just to see how we can mitigate the crisis. Okay.
Another issue when it comes to cost of living, and I know you posted about it just recently about Local Law 97.
We need to roll that back.
For people who don't know, it's basically a lot of restrictions on co-op and condo owners to reduce their carbon footprint. We actually did a series on it recently for people who are listening to check AM New York and Queen's Post for that. But Local Law 97, it's going to put a lot of people, working class, middle class people, it's going to be an extra tax burden. I've been to some of the meetings. It's going to cost thousands per person. What are your own thoughts on it? And it's going to come into effect in January. And just Tiffany Cabán is basically, she is siding with the law. It's been passed, and she's just going to. I think
they just passed that they're going to give 2 years extension on it now. Okay. I believe that just came through. I believe there was an intro 913 that Vicky Palladino was pushing to at least stall it until we could figure it out. I would want to roll it back completely. I understand the lowering our carbon footprint, but we have to always mitigate what that cost is, especially cost to the middle class. And when we have an apartment affordability crisis, making rent stabilized apartments, co-ops, all of that more expensive to maintain, more expensive to keep, means it's going to be more expensive for them to offer a rent that's reasonable to somebody who they're renting the apartment to besides. And then you're going to have 800,000 co-ops are going to be affected by this. Yeah. Their values aren't going to, you have maintenance fees, right? So it's all going to, you have to share the cost of that. So say you own the apartment, it's co-op, you own the shares. You pay maintenance and taxes, say it's $2,000 a month, right? Well, with Local Law 97, that could double. Then you could be paying $4,000 a month. So that's a huge jump for anybody. And then if, again, it causes a problem with the affordability crisis with renting. So say you have a co-op and somebody rents it, and you're able to give them a $2,500 a month rent. Now you can't afford to give them a $2,500 a month rent. Now you're going to have to give them a $4,500 a month rent because the maintenance is going to increase as well. So all around, it's not just the co-ops, but it hurts the affordability of housing for the middle class 100%. And it doesn't benefit the new developers. They can come in and they can just go and they can just do everything electric. It's no problem. We're building a new building. But to go back and do all that maintenance and all that work, it's a burdensome investment. And right now, when everything costs so much more, and we talk about this all the time, I hear it even now from the federal government, go and the answer to affordable housing is to build more housing. This is the most expensive time to build housing. You've got probably 8% interest rates by the time we get to the end of the year. You know, the cost of materials, I work on new developments, it takes a year to get a fridge. You know, if we want to use Sub-Zero, they're backlogged. It's not an easy time to just go and build. And we have warehouse apartments, rent stabilized apartment owners. I was just with the Greek Homeowners Association yesterday, talking with the Rent Stabilization Association. They came in to talk about some of the things that are happening in that realm, and that's based on laws from 2019. But say you have an apartment and the person moves out and they only paid like $1,000 a month and they'd lived there for 20 years. You have so many, like almost $45,000, $50,000 worth of repairs to do to put that back on the market, but you can't raise the rent. You can only raise it to like maybe $1,100. And that's a big investment and that's hard. And I was just dropping off my daughter and son at school, and one of the moms said to me that her parents, because most of them are elderly that live in the neighborhood that own these buildings, they can't afford to maintain them anymore, so they're selling them. So you have a lot of empty rent-stabilized apartments that could be affordable for people that are just not even on the market.
There's all these zoning laws, rent stabilization, apartments in New York, and yet it's the most expensive place in the country to live.
Yes, yes. I think housing affordability and understanding the way the market works is very important. And you know, when I talk to people that work on the Real Estate Board of New York, or I talk with people, you know, that are in the industry that work with lower income landlords that also work with middle, you know, a lot of these are like middle class people that own these buildings, minority owned buildings. You know, they feel like that they're being pushed out. The developers, the bigger developers and bigger developments are getting the majority of the benefits and they're getting crushed. And so it is very important to me that there are more people, even if I don't get elected, but there are more people that understand the intricacies of New York City laws and housing, and because it's so complicated, that we're represented on city council or, you know, in the mayor's office to really, you know, hone in on this before we turn into like San Francisco, where our policies deem it almost impossible for us to have affordable housing.
So do you have any kind of quick fix solutions to the housing crisis that you might?
Yes, I think we really need to incentivize our rent-stabilized landowners, our rent-stabilized apartment owners. They need to be incentivized, for sure. Yes, for sure. You know, with more, bring back some of like those MCI increase programs, J51 programs, you know, help them with, you know, some of the vacancy increases, you know, and taxation. You know, we went from like, you know, your taxes were like 10%, you know, your tax, water and sewer, and now it's like 30-40% of your expenses. And insurance is a huge problem that nobody's talking about. It used to be like $3,000 to $4,000 a year to insure a building, and that's for like if you're a co-op or a condo, you know, because you have to purchase insurance for the building. Now you're looking at $22,000 to $25,000 a year to insure the building. So insurance is also something that needs to be addressed. And I think right now there's only 3 or 4 insurance companies that will even insure some of these, you know, older apartment buildings.
So you're up against Tiffany Cabán. Do you think, are you going to debate each other? Do you think that's
We've asked.
You've asked her to debate?
Yes, we've asked for a debate.
And has she responded?
No. No. But we've asked for an in-person debate. We'd be very happy to do so. And whenever she's ready, I'm available.
Do you think she should do it in the interest of transparency, democracy, that you should, the 2 leading candidates should go head to head in a debate?
Absolutely, 100%. 100%. You know, I was discussing with somebody else that people don't know who the candidates are. They get the little pamphlet in the mail from, you know, CFP that tells you who they, you know, and it's interesting because when you answer those questions, you're limited to words. So like I can only do 250 characters to answer a question, which I don't think really informs the public on who the candidates are. So I appreciate you coming today and doing this.
That was it's one of my goals was because I just didn't know enough, and as a reporter I wanted to just find out more about you. I'm also going to offer Tiffany Cabán, if she wants to sit down with me, she can, and we're going to put the word out there to see if we can get the two of you to debate, because I think it's needed.
I think crime, I think the streets being so dirty and bringing the community together is number one. You know, it used to be that, you know, there'd be like, you go to the meetings, right? There'd be like 400 people at some of these meetings, and the whole community would come together and they would know what's going on. I think social media has hampered that, you know, because you have people that only circulate on it. They follow everything on Instagram, and they have people that are only on Facebook, and then you have people that don't do either of those things. They still just read the newspaper. So even that pedestrian bicycle safety meeting that she held, a lot of people in the district felt that they didn't even know about it. But it's all about communicating to the entire district and bringing them together. Like even in the Astoria houses, we had the police national night out, and I was in the community the day after, and I was like, why weren't any of the kids from the houses at the police national night? Why weren't you at movie night in the park? We didn't know about it. And I think as a city council person that I would like to be more similar to the Vallone side, where I try to get the community to know everything and be involved. And if that's multiple media platforms that you have to use to do it, then mailers, phone calls, knocking on doors, whatever. I think the community needs to be more involved with each other.
I just walking the streets a second ago. It is a lovely neighbourhood when it's clean, obviously. But you've been here a while. You said more than 10 years. So what draws you to the neighbourhood, and what do you love about Astoria?
So the diversity and the old like immigrant neighborhood. I mean, that's the quintessential New York. You know, like I grew up in an Italian family where it was like, as soon as the doorbell rang, I was 9 years old, my job was put the coffee on, and 20 aunts would come over with cakes, and like, you know, you helped each other, you cleaned each other's houses. You know, like this morning I went out and she's very old next door, so it was like I put her garbage away. It's just what you did. It was community. And so I remember walking through here, and because I lived on the Upper West Side, and the Upper West Side really changed because it used to be like that too, but then it got very commercial, and a lot of the restaurants closed, more retail moved in, clothing, and then we went from a Barnes & Nobles to a Century 21, and the neighborhood just lost its character and its quality. And I remember walking through here and seeing the roses and the rose bushes and the quiet, and then the people, and I was like, I feel like I'm home. I feel like I'm like in like the immigrant family that I grew up with, which is the beautiful thing about this neighborhood. Everybody speaks different languages. It's everybody's family, everybody's community, and I think people moving in, when they move in, they really appreciate that as well. So it's just let's not hurry up and change it. You know, let's try to all live and work together, because it's a beautiful community with beautiful people.
Tell me, just finishing up there, you mentioned earlier that you do some snowboarding.
Yes.
I was interested
Yes, yeah, it's funny. I snowboard, Wyndham Mountain, which is like 2.5 hours from here. Okay. So before I had kids on the weekends, I would go and I would teach snowboarding up there with my ex-husband. Right, okay. It was fun. But I've been snowboarding a long time. I enjoy it. My kids snowboard now, which is great. So they go up there, and they got to be like in the snowboarding program just because we taught. So because we teach, they would be able to learn and snowboard for free. So it was great. It's good.
So, sorry, did you say you're still snowboarding, or just the kids?
I still snowboard, but the kids snowboard. Right. I can't catch them. They go down the hill, and I'm just like, now I'm like, you get older, you're a little more like, I don't know if I want to ride that fast. But yes, they it's fun. We go as a family.
You're staying active, fantastic.